All right, if everybody could turn on their mics. I call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone. Good evening. Hopefully everyone made it in safely through this rain and packed parking lot. If everyone could please rise for the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I don't have any announcements to make at this time, so I'll just move into item number 1. Can I please have a motion to adopt the agenda? First is Tom, second is Stacy. All in favor? It is 6 in favor. Thank you. I'm sorry, 7. Yeah, everyone's here tonight. Okay, so the next item up, we're going to move into the Board of Education and Community Comments. We're going to start with board members. Deanna.
I actually don't have anything to say tonight.
Okay.
There's a lot going on, so I think I might say, I know, right? You're shocked.
Well, we also have, we'll go to the order.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait.
Thank you. Gusta. Same. Okay. Tom. Okay. Jackson.
The musical is this week. Thank you. The musical is this week, Thursday, Friday at 7. And then Saturday they have a matinee 2 o'clock and then an evening at 7 right here at the high school. So show your support. That'd be great. They always put on a great job. So shout out to them. That's all.
Thank you. Glad to be there. Petra. Okay. Stacy.
Nothing this time.
Okay. Okay. Leave it all to me. So I do have something I need to share, and I need to do it during board comments. So I'm going to hand you something. If you could take one and pass it, and then a second stack, if you could take one and pass it. Apologize for not having this out to you. So I just wanted to use this time to share a few things specific to BOCES. Actually, could you hand me the cover sheet? I need one cover one to look at it really. Actually, no, I don't. I can remember. I think I can remember the key points. As all of us, as many of you know, we are a member of Capital Region BOCES, and at this time of the year, they share their snapshot report out of services. It's done at this time because they have to wait till the annual report is finished, and then and that it's shared with the state, and then they share it with us. And so, as you can see, it's just a snapshot of a few highlights, but I wanted to point out that one specific thing here, and that is BOCES aid generated $3.4 million for our school district. Essentially, every dollar that we spend for a BOCES aid of a program, we get 52 cents back. And there is a second doc here. That's actually the one I need to look at because I just received this tonight. It's the second one. I'll hand it back to you, Jason. Thank you. This one is an invitation to a board engagement and collaboration for Board of Education members. I think this is the first time they've run this particular program. I think it's a great idea. It's on May 1st from 5 to 7:30 p.m. at Capital Region BOCES, and dinner is part of that, and hopefully everyone can make that event. I just also wanted to let you know that, or a reminder, because I know everyone received the email specific to the Capital Region BOCES annual meeting on April 10th, and you'll hear firsthand about the budget at that meeting. It's at 5:30 at the CTE building. For those who are not familiar with the program, the BOCES program has 2 campuses, one in Albany and one in Schoharie. And the Albany campus alone has 29 programs. So what I wanted to do is I brought this with me tonight, and I'll explain what this is a little bit in a second. But of those 29 programs, they include things like technology, welding, manufacturing and machinery, network technology, criminal justice, cosmetology, culinary arts, game design. I mean, there's so many wonderful programs that, and they're continuing to expand all the time. Also today, or rather this month, is Women in Trades Month. And there was an event at Capital Region BOCES today to recognize women in the trade. There was a panel where we were able to hear firsthand from our students, and also to hear from people in the trade, and to talk about the challenges that women face in the trades. Today's event is a kickoff event. There are more coming. You'll receive emails. Actually, I think Dr. Wood sent one out today that talked about some of the programs that are coming. And if you can attend, that would be great. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity to see our students too, shining and really talking about how these programs have really changed their lives. Many students that graduate from this program do go into the industry, but many also go on to 2- and 4-year schools. And last year they had a signing ceremony. It was standing room only. The room was packed. And for all those graduating seniors, whether it was someone in the industry, they were coming there to sign them to say you've got a job or apprenticeship or you've been accepted into our college. And that was, I'm not sure how many years they've been doing that. This is the first time I was able to attend, and I will definitely be going to that. I think this year it's around March 7th. So I mentioned this is the course catalog for the 2024-25 school year. And so if you want to take a peek to see what kind of programs are offered, this is a great catalog. This is, it's the first time I've seen this catalog, and I'm sure that they've had them out. It's just, I didn't get one last year, but it talks about the programs, where they're located, whether it's the Schoharie campus or the Albany campus. And so, I love this program. It gives our students a chance to try a few things and, to apply what they're learning in the classroom. And so we do have programs here at Shen that complement the programs at BOCES, which allows even more students to participate if they can participate in our program here. So that's what I wanted to share for my board comment time. I am done. That's the end of board comments, and we're going to move into public comments. Usually we have our students up first, but Glennis is sick tonight.
Yes.
Were you going to speak on her behalf or no?
I can. The only thing she wanted me to say was dodgeball was unfortunately canceled for the Senate, so we're moving our resources to our new event, Festival of the Arts. It's going to recognize all different types of arts within the high school, and throughout Shenendehowa, so we're excited about that. That's all she wanted me to say.
When is that?
April 26th, 5 to 8 p.m.
Here at High School East?
Yes.
Okay, 5 to 8 p.m. High School East. Okay, thank you. Okay, so before I read the statement for public comments, I first want to ask, do we have anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Because if not, and I don't need to read this long statement. So seeing no one approach the podium, I'm going to close public comments. If you change your mind, there will be an opportunity later on the agenda to make a public comment. So I'm going to move into the superintendent's report. Dr. Robinson?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hoffman. So the first thing I would actually like to have Dr. Wilson Turner come and share a tenure recommendation, and after that recommendation, I ask if the board could approve it afterwards as well.
Of course, absolutely.
Good evening. Tonight, I bring forward the recommendation for Shannon Doggett, special education teacher. She's recommended by Lisa Young and John Burns, our administrators at the middle school level. Shannon has completed a 3-year probationary appointment in the tenure area of special education. Shannon was hired in September of 2020 and worked with students at Acadia Middle School.
Any questions?
Okay, any questions for the board? Okay, with that, can I have a motion to approve the tenure recommendation for Shannon Doggett? First is Jason, second is Gusta. Any comments? All in favor? It is 7 in favor. Is Shannon here tonight? Shannon, would you like to come up? Shannon, would you like to come up?
And shake hands. No, she's fine. No.
It's okay, all right.
So
Congratulations.
Thank you very much for the board for doing so. Shannon, thank you very much on your tenure. So we're certainly looking forward to you being with us for a while. So thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate you being here tonight as well. So just to continue on the agenda, we have several things on the agenda. The agenda is modified a little bit just from informational piece. Tonight, petitions for Board of Education. Those petitions are available. Mrs. Ford has copies of those petitions over there if there are individuals who want to collect those petitions, and or contact the district office to get a copy of the petition as well. This year, they're requiring 49 signatures based upon last year's election. So 49 signatures required for the petition, so please grab a petition if you have interest in running for the Board of Education. And I already saw Mr. DeGianna grab the petition, so.
Mulling it over.
The second piece, I want to walk through two presentations to the board. This time of year is where we start the budget process, and so this is the first type of detail, if you will, presentation related to the budget. Let me just get in present mode. So I start by saying that contrary to some of the comments that you might be hearing around the state otherwise, we're actually in a pretty good place starting our budget process. And it's not by luck, it's by design, and I'll take all the credit for that, thank you. Now, on a very serious note, we're in a good place starting our budget process, and you'll see even tonight what we'll be presenting to you. And there are a series of other meetings beyond tonight that we have the conversation. We're already starting to schedule our roadshow schedule, so to speak, faculty meetings, PTA meetings, senior citizen centers, wherever people, anywhere someone wants us to come to speak about the budget. Typically, what we ensure that certainly the board knows, in this case for the public, that the budget, everything that we do, quite frankly with you, circulates around our mission. Who we are as a school district, what we're trying to achieve as a school district. So this is a graphic depiction of our mission statement. So we can make it very actionable in terms of the budget speaks to how we speak to engagement, speak to innovation, speak to culturally competent practices, speak to ensure that our young people truly leave here, so to speak, ready for the world in terms of global collaboration. Speak to the collective working responsibility of internally, externally, that makes Shen a great school system. Our goals drive what we do, specific goals and objectives. This is just the fiscal responsibility goal. And again, I just want to point out some key words. We don't say budget goals, we don't say finance goals, it's about fiscal responsibility. Everyone in our system plays a part in terms of how we use resources effectively. So it's important for that to be stated. And the first objective is a strategic budget that truly that addresses not only our current needs, but anticipate our future needs as well. These three questions, again, some of this is clearly a repeat for the board members because they've heard this probably many times over, but I think it's important to state. Then we look at it from a lens of inclusive. So what else can we do as a school as a system to make the school classroom experience inclusive? So the various needs, desires of our students are considered as a part of the process. We look at it from a diverse perspective. How can we be responsive to and capitalize on emerging needs and changing cultural shifts within our school and community? And ultimately, it's about having an axiomatic experience that basically we're ensuring equity and opportunity and outcomes as much as we possibly can through access to supports and services. So these three questions drive what we do all the time. We ask these questions to ensure that we are using resources effectively. So when I just joke that it's not by accident, it's truly by design, that we're in the place where we are, it's because we're very consistent about asking the same questions to ensure we're using resources most effectively. The second graphic I'd like to share, not necessarily go into a lot of detail with it, is our Shen learning framework. And so this fundamentally comes from basic economic principle of input, process, output. If you want a different output, you either need a different process or different inputs. And so if you want change, something has to change. And so this looks at it from the lens of having our students in the middle, and we're asking the questions, what are we teaching? What's the curriculum? We're asking ourselves, how are we teaching? What's the instruction? And then we ask ourselves, what are we doing it? So this lens, again, drive decisions. Even before we make the decision, we ask them, why is this important? What are we hoping to do? How we best do it, and how we're going to measure the effectiveness of it. So this framework drives not only instruction, decision making, but certainly drives our thinking with the budget process as well. And so I just want to, please stay for this wonderful presentation. I see the intensity, but if somebody has a dying desire to walk out right now, I won't be that insulted. So this is also an important piece, again, particularly for those who are hearing this presentation for the first time, that we do really take a very measured approach with the budget process, a very thoughtful approach. And the reason why we take a very measured approach is because ultimately it's about repeatable successes. Can we do it again and again and again and again? So our budget process drive that notion that if something is worthwhile doing, we need to then assure that we can do it again and again. So we make certain assumptions that goes into the budget, certain information, certain data points that we make our forecasts are based upon certain assumptions. And then we also go into a certain expectation. What do we want the budget to achieve? What's the end goal? So we kind of design this whole process with certain ends in mind as well. I'm not going to click on this link, but this is a link to a budget calendar that shows all the detailed steps that goes back to October to get to the point where we are now. So the next piece, important point again, before we get into some of the details of the budget, is that we really do look at multiple scenarios. And it's trying to preserve that balance between preserving the great programs that we have and asking yourself that question, what should we change? And then also looking at that diminishing return. Where's that point where if you keep investing in something, after a while your returns start to do this? And so where's that point where you say either something has to change or be eliminated or otherwise? So we assess those type things, and at the same time, we're also trying to avoid this whole concept of structural deficit. We don't want to buy something today that we can't necessarily pay for in the future, right? So we try to be thoughtful as we look at it, so that multi-year approach becomes important. So we look at past trends to try to understand some sense of what the future may hold, and then we look at a 3-year forecast to say if we were to make these decisions today and multiply those factors out for a few years, what does that look like? Can we sustain that into the future before we even make a decision on what we're going to do today? So those are some important pieces to point out as we go through the budget process. This whole notion of taking a very objective view of it, we look at a lot of data, a lot of staffing data in particular. When you think about it, 80% roughly of our budget is salary and benefits. We hire people to do the job. We had a great tenure recognition tonight of Shannon as a perfect example of that. We hire people, invest in people to do the jobs required to provide a quality education for our students. And so there's a lot of analysis of staffing. There's a lot of looking at outcome data in terms of what's working, what's not working, what else we need to add, what we need to change. Then we look at cost trends. Where the price points of different things, where collective bargaining contracts going, where health insurance rates going, some of the big rocks, some of the big cost structures, what are those forecasted cost pieces, and then what's that delta, the difference between where we are now and where we anticipate that to be moving forward. And then at the end of it, we look at then what's the revenue pieces, what's the implication for taxes, what's the implication for state aid, what's the implication for our fund balances? So we then make sure that both sides of the proverbial equation lines up, that we have a net zero in terms of the budget impact as we move forward. And so as we go through the budget process, again, it's a very measured process. We think about all our challenges. What are some of the major fiscal challenges that we have right now? So we knew, particularly coming out of COVID, that we're going to see some particular upticks in health insurance because of the nature of what COVID did to certain industries. And so we started seeing some of those last year. We made some educated, informed assumptions. And this year we're starting to see now there's I don't want to say smoothing off the cost, but you don't have this huge spike anymore. You're starting to see more of the normal progression of cost structures, and so we're taking that into consideration as we move forward. We look at the state fiscal outlook. There's a lot of conversation across the state right now. Last year, everyone was excited because there was a fully funding of the state aid formula, and that was short-lived because this year there's a proposal to eliminate certain things. Won't necessarily impact Shen in the same way as it does some of our colleagues and school partners across the region, but we have to look at that fiscal outlook and say, okay, not only what does 24-25 look like, but what does 25-26 look like? And what does that look like in an election cycle? How does that change as we look forward, not only from a state perspective, but also from a federal government perspective? And cost escalations are one of those things we're always monitoring. The price points for certain things continue to increase, and so we have to think about when will we see a plateau in some of those cost escalations as we move forward. Another big piece of it that we say, what are the opportunities we have? As a school district, we plan to have the school district in a fiscally strong position. In other words, we never want to have a situation that we are balancing our budget based upon the political winds. You know, it depends on who's in office, who's doing what. We really want to, as much as we possibly can, control our destiny through our planning process. And so we look at strategic repurposing of staffing. We look at when we have turnovers, when we have vacancies. We ask the question, should we backfill the same way or should we do something differently as we move forward? certainly, so personnel management is a huge part of that piece of the equation as we move forward. And the last bullet on this is something we, not only Shen, but school districts across the state, the country for that matter, has been very fortunate with what people refer to as COVID funds. Federal dollars that came out of in trying to help schools reconcile some of the challenges after COVID. And those dollars will be going away September 2024 completely. So how have we leveraged those dollars over the past several years? And how are we planning to have exit strategy for those funds or certain aspects of those funds for the coming year as well. So, but those are opportunities that we have been looking at for a number of years as we plan the budget processes, again, having that multi-year look. The value add piece is an important piece for us. Equity and supports is a primary piece of it. We don't build a budget and say, okay, well, what about? We build a budget holding the whole notion that service follow needs. If our students need more to be successful, we're asking the question, what else, and what else do we add, what else do we need to ensure or preserve, ensure is probably too strong a word, preserve parity and outcomes. So service follow needs as we go through the budget process. And so that then lends to the academic capacity. What are the courses we offer? What are the engagement opportunities we offering for our students? Again, and then it goes to the staffing piece, employee piece. How do we enhance the productivity quotient? In other words, how do we invest in our staff so people can be, quite frankly, more productive in terms of either new skills, new information, or new equipment to more effectively do their jobs? And so those are the value add things, again, that we try to drive from the budget process. To go into a few details, RX health insurance is a big piece of it. We probably spend $30 million on health and drugs. So it's a pretty significant portion of our budget. When you think about it, we have 1,800 full-time employees roughly, about 2,200 actual bodies. So we have a lot of people we employ. So that should be a significant portion of our budget. And so right now, it's interesting, it's a challenge somewhat for, just from a edification purposes. We have rates that will run till January, and then they'll change again in January. So the rates change in the mid-cycle of a fiscal year for us. And so we have to think about what we have now, what's anticipated change in January to June of next year. And so that 10% is hopefully will take into consideration the rate adjustments now and then rate adjustments in January. Retirement and pension costs, again, pretty sizable piece of the budget, so we try to anticipate those things and calculate those things out because they are in fact formula driven for the most part. We'll see a slight increase in the rates for the teacher retirement system, and we're seeing a slight increase in the rates for our employee retirement system as well. So we calculate those costs out to have some sense of what those big contractual related costs that we need to use, we need to address in the budget. And certainly one of the things that the board has been very supportive of is creating reserves to try to offset some of those increases. So when we see significant spikes in those areas, those spikes are having an adverse impact on the program and services that we try to deliver to our students. And so trying to use reserves as much as we can to address those type things. And certainly we're in the process now of going through negotiations with our administrative units, and we'll be starting negotiation with our supervisory units. So we have to take those things in consideration as we plan the budget process moving forward. Some key areas for operational enhancements that we're focused on. Last year, again, appreciate the board's support. We had a very, very comprehensive safety audit of the entire school district done. And so now we've been working on many of those aspects of the audit, and some point before the board asks, yes, some point we will have another update on the progress of the audit. But some things we were able to address right away. Some things we're planning for in this budget with some additional resources as we move forward to, again, address some of those items from that safety audit. Cybersecurity is a big issue. It's a big issue not only for us, it's a big issue for everyone. Because I mean, quite frank with you, I've had to change my debit card 3 times in the last month. And I keep saying it can't be me because I'm only using it at 3 different places. So I'm not going to say the name of the bank, but I think somebody has a problem. But it's my problem when it's my money that you're worrying about somebody getting into your account. I use it for example because the industry right now is having a huge issue. Schools are having those same issues. And so cybersecurity is a big part of what we have been focused on as a school system. Cybersecurity insurance is a big part we've been focused on as a school system, because the more we use technology, the more possibilities we have for intrusion into our system. And so we didn't have to have the filters and other things in place on the backside of it to again, safeguard our data and safeguard how we use our computer systems. So cybersecurity is going to be a key focus, not only from the budget, but some of the federal funds. We have been doing a lot of things over this past year. Trying to enhance field trip opportunities is a big piece of it, and this is something for a number of years we've been looking at. Certainly this has been more challenging because of the lack of bus drivers, and so it's a challenging piece in terms of when can we use our buses versus have to get charter buses, and each time we use a charter bus is twice the cost of using local Shen buses, so we're trying to balance those things all the time. So we're going to try to address some of those things, some of those local field trip costs in this budget process as well. A debt service is something we have to think about. As a school system, we're always, and we need to always be under construction, either in maintenance or adding or changing something all the time when you think about the magnitude of the plant. So we have to always plan debt. And so when you think about it, it's your mortgage payment, right? So your mortgage payment at home is our debt service at school. So we have to think about how do we plan debt when new debt comes on, when is old debt going off, and how do we try to have a flat line progression of our payments over the years. So that's a big piece of it. And another piece on here, again, some of these items aren't necessarily big dollar items, but they're big impact items in terms of opportunities for kids. Looking at engagement opportunities, the board heard a presentation, if you will, call it that, on esports. We're still working through that plan now. Pretty excited. Mrs. Hoffman just mentioned some of the great opportunities that the BOCES offer to schools that may not be able to do certain things on their own. So we're looking at those kind of things, adding some extracurricular activity units to create more opportunities within our schools. Some enhancements to athletics to allow for more students, particularly at the modified level, to have participation. Modified meaning middle school level to ninth grade level. So again, trying to increase some engagement opportunities is important for us as we go through the budget process. You'll hear about in a second some things on the instructional side that we're looking to invest. Again, the whole notion of equity in services, service following needs. So looking at special education needs, trying to understand what those needs are and anticipate what those needs are. The prime example of that, we knew this was going to happen during COVID, where we knew if there was a group of young people that had the most challenging time during COVID, there were certain students with disabilities because of the lack of service, and particularly preschool age students with disabilities because of the lack of services. And now those young folks are kindergarten at age 5, age 6, come into our system, and now we have to wrap around them much more than quite frankly we probably have to in the past in terms of the number of young people requiring services. So we added some additional services. ENL population continues to grow, and how do we ensure that we're addressing those type things? We invested in universal screener to have another data point to assess the academic progression of our students, and from that, what are some key areas, or where are some key areas that we should invest? You're going to hear about some of those things as we move forward, because it drives some of our academic intervention services as well. Some program expansion opportunities, again, using the Shen framework to look at some of those program opportunities, particularly some of the things I just mentioned before. Enrollment drives needs at the elementary level. Elementary is largely driven by enrollment. Secondary is driven by student choice, needs, courses, selections, things of that nature. So looking at those changes as well. And there's some significant standard changes coming down from the pipe from the State Education Department, particularly in science. We'll be dealing with a lot of science changes, particularly at the secondary level, over the next 3 years. And so adjusting for some of those standard changes as well become a big piece of it. And certainly, you probably heard the news, and Shen was way ahead of this curve, the whole legislative movement about science of reading. And anytime people want to legislate something, makes me a little bit nervous, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. We have to still address the individual needs of our students, and we have been investing in a lot of that for a number of years. So many ways ahead of that curve, but we always have to understand what the implication of standard changes at the state, and how does that play out for us as a school district, and how do we plan for it over multiple years to become a significant piece of that equation as well. And so again, this presentation, we won't necessarily walk through every budget code line, so that's not the intent of it, because we'll be here for days and days out. The intent is to provide certainly a clear picture and a good sense of some of the big rocks that's driving the budget process. Talking about leveraging resources, each year, and so we've been doing this for now, believe it or not, this is the 19th time doing this. I feel so old when I just said that. This is the 19th time here at Shen, presenting a budget, and each year we have offered an incentive for teachers. And people say, why do you do it for teachers and not other bargaining units? It's because of the salary schedule structure. The teachers bargaining has a salary schedule structure. Most other bargaining units don't. So the differential between a new hire and someone here been a long time is not that great for most other employee groups. And so this year, the magic number was 17. And we have 17, but I'm here that we may have a few other people may retire after the incentive date has already passed. So those 17 retirees it provides an opportunity for us to leverage that differential between where someone is leaving and where someone might be coming in as we move forward. And if you see here, we use a step 6 replacement. When I first started back here 19 years ago, it was almost a step 1 because we were literally hiring a lot of brand new teachers. There's a lot of brand new teachers in the market space. That has changed significantly over the years. Now we're hiring more veteran teachers, people who are coming from other places. People accuse us of stealing people. We don't steal people. We just make it more attractive for people to come to us. And so now we look at a replacement cycle at a step 6. So we have to average, right? So for anyone above 6, we have to get some below 6 to average out in terms of where our budget process is. And so we look at those numbers, we analyze those numbers, see where the trend line is going, so we can ensure that what we have in the budget, we can accommodate staff and hiring people from across the differentials and not being stuck to say we only hire someone at this level versus we want to hire the best people that comes into the system. And so that gives us a flexibility for doing so. And up to 17, this is how the progression breaks out. 16 of those will be at 6 of those at the elementary level, 3 at the middle level, and 8 at the high school. And so probably the 1st of April or so, we'll start posting for anticipated vacancy to get ahead of the hiring process and hopefully get the best potential pool of candidates coming to the system. So they're leveraging those resources, and that differential is a little over $800,000. So that now gives us the opportunity, I said leverage it, gives an opportunity to add some things to the budget without the budget going up. So that's what I mean by the leveraging of resource piece of it as we move forward. And so that's one big piece of it. The second big piece of that leverage, as we think about how we're going to use resources, we have to think about our off-ramp strategy from federal funds. And there's some key positions that we use federal funds to cover, and with those federal funds no longer in existence, we have to figure out how do we put those things in the budget, how those things, those expenditures subsume within our budget as well. So we have some AIS and EDK, extended day K positions that were that were covered by federal funds, and we will continue those into the budget. And so the 805 that we saved over here is now using to address these things over here. So this is just an example of that. Instructional coach. I see some of my colleagues here, some of my elementary colleagues and some middle school colleagues, folks. So last year was a significant investment in wit and wisdom, and so we had a coach come aboard to do that. So keeping that person on board becomes a big part of it. Again, so that's the professional development piece, the on-demand piece. And so keeping that position was covered in the federal funds, and now we bring it back into the budget, to the general fund budget. So again, it's kind of the same kind of methodology all the time. Mental health counselor, mental health services. We contract with Saratoga Center for the families. So last year was an additional $60,000 was added to the service quotient, and we want to keep that amount into the budget moving forward as well. Behavior specialists. We hired a behavior specialist last year, was largely covered by federal funds. We want to keep that person on board. So again, subsumed in this year's budget. The high school lab, and I put this one on there because not a significant cost, but it's a significant impact on certain students that are struggling, where they have the lab that they could go to get extra supports and those type of things. So again, I point those things out because sometimes people say, well, that's not major. Well, if you measure it by cost, it may not be. If you measure it by impact, it's pretty significant. So we think about those things as well. ENL co-teaching was a big piece of it. How do we get ENL teachers in classrooms in certain classrooms based upon the demographics of students in a particular classroom? Again, it was in the federal COVID funds that we'll be dropping back into this year's budget. So there's several positions that we're bringing into the budget. They're not new per se, but they're new in it being assumed in the general fund budget. Some things that we will be looking at in terms of some new investments. Particularly looking at based upon some of our data points. We mentioned looking at having some of the STAR data, some other data points, with some additional AIS supports at elementary level, additional AIS supports at the middle level will be key for us as we move forward, ELA and math at the middle school level. So again, trying to be very strategic in terms of trying to put resources in areas that we think is going to be most impactful for our students moving forward. ENL, as I mentioned, is that's probably one of the fastest population of our student population that's growing as a school district. And so trying to get a coach, to have a coach that's going to work with our teachers who have NL students. We can't make the assumption that people know how to do this best. And so we eliminate the assumptions by providing supports. And so this is going to be a big boost to quite frankly, across the entire K-12 spectrum for the coming year and beyond as well. So we're looking at that. Some additional ENL teacher supports because, again, for the numbers and also the types of services that students need coming into our system. Special education the numbers for the most part are consistent. However, the needs have changed. And so how do we then look at some additional coaching supports for particular certain special education program needs? And so we're going to look at that next year. And the coaching model for us as a school district has proven to be a very effective way because you have the on-demand. So I could send Gusta to a PD in October, but in February, Augusta is thinking, ooh, I need somebody right now to help me. So the coaching model is truly that. So we can have the on-demand as well as the short-term and the long-term perspective on professional development. So that's a big piece for us as we move forward. I mentioned the numbers in special education. We're going to be looking at some particular at elementary level, some additional services and courses at an elementary level as we move forward. So you see the additional special education staffing here, and so you may say this seems special education heavy. It's not necessarily. It's probably I don't know, Mrs. Mala. We say how many kids you're talking about? 30, 35 students, but just because of the types of needs they have. The programming requires a lot of supports as we move forward. And so those particular ones you see here addressing some of those program needs, again, for some of our earliest, or should I say, some of our youngest learners as we move forward. So a lot of focus on elementary special education, trying to address needs at the infancy as much as we possibly can, so those things don't persist for those young people throughout the years. Some enrollment-driven pieces each year. Art and music is one of those areas that is piecemeal because a lot of it is driven by schedule, who's taking what kids taking what, and those type things. And so we're trying to accommodate those. Some of this is also trying to be much more accommodating, particularly with students with special education needs, to accommodate their needs so they can have the same benefits, same services, arts and music as everyone else. And so we're always looking at it from that lens of who's benefiting, but more importantly, who is not. And then how do we try to address those needs as we move forward? So that's a big piece for us. CTE, a lot of exciting things that we've been doing in CTE and trying to expand our internal capacity as well as continue to send a significant number of students. I think we probably about 140 kids or so that we send to the Capital Region BOCES, and we probably have maybe twice as many of that taking services on courses here. So we certainly want to try to provide options and opportunities for our students as we move forward. Some slight modifications to kindergarten, not a significant, 0.5 meaning is, so in our AM PM section is one section of AM or one section of PM. So it's not a significant number, but we see some enrollment patterns across certain schools that we want to try to address for kindergarten. And quite frankly, that also positions us for as we transition to 4-day K in the future as well. So certainly one of those investments that not only address the current need being tactical, but it's also address our long-term need in terms of being strategic as we move forward. Some program enhancements, I mentioned esports. Right now, a lot of this is focused on equipment, some initial upfront equipment costs that esports requires. And frankly, we're hoping that maybe even before some of the federal funds are exhausted, we might be able to purchase some of those things through the federal funds, and what's budgeted will be a complementary thing as we go into the season, the school year, because we anticipate that the numbers of kids have an interest going to be high. And so how do we try to be prepared to accommodate that number of students as we move forward? I mentioned before some enhancements, particularly at the modified level. Prior to COVID, there was a big push to get modified programs expanded, and a lot of schools backed away right after COVID, and now people are getting back into the notion of trying to enhance modified sports. So trying to do some additional things, modified cross country, the girls flag, as we heard presentation here. I had the privilege of going to a meeting the other day here at Shen, where the 12 local schools, I think it's 12, that are participating, all the coaches were here talking about program planning, so it's pretty exciting. I think we have 70 plus young ladies who are interested in it, which is, we won't carry a football team of 70, but it's great that you have a lot of high interest, and so we're looking for that as well. Track and field has always been one of the sports that we have high numbers in. So trying to provide some additional support, so we're not telling a young person, sorry, there's not enough room in the end. So we certainly want to provide those options as we move forward. And again, some extracurricular activity units, recognizing that each year people come up with thoughts, hey, what about this club? What about this? And so how do we try to accommodate those things as well? And as much as we add, and we also ask in the numbers, well, what about this, that the numbers are pretty low? Should we be doing something else? So it's not a simple add, it's also, let's analyze what we're doing. Are we most effective using resources? And if we need to add additional resources, having some capacity to do so as well. This competition code one is not as probably as clear, but we have kids that compete in different things that require registration fees. So like the debate club, for example, require a registration fee. And so how do we try to address some of those things as we move forward? So this is an additional we traditionally spend about $35,000 on these registration fees. So again, trying to make sure we don't have a situation where, oh, we made the state level in this and it requires $500 registration fee, and all of a sudden, well, we have to ask every parent, some parents, no parents, we can't go, versus if our students are engaged, how we try to support them in some of those endeavors. So that's what that competition code is, and trying to add some additional money on that. So we'll monitor that as we move forward to see how fast we need to make the adjustment to some of those things. Shannon, have a good night. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. I know she wanted to give you flowers. I thought it was for me. And so local field trips is a big one for us as well. So this is the Shannon fan crew. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So local field trips is something that for years we have tried to balance different ways of containing the costs for local. What I mean by local field trips, the going to the local orchard or the local, those type things. So not, a group decided to go to Washington D.C. or the 8th grade trip to what's the place up north?
Six Flags.
Six Flags. So we're talking about more localized field trips, and so addressing some of those type things. And so based upon some cost numbers, we're budgeting about $80,000 in addition to what we already budgeted in transportation to address some of those things. And so we'll monitor those things. And one of the things that we have been doing, principal otherwise, is really plotting out who's offering what and who's not offering what. Because we always hear that, well, this school does do this and this school doesn't do that, and those kind of things. And so not only from a budget piece, but also then asking the question, what are we doing and who's doing what? And also try to avoid a situation where I did this in 1st grade, and I'm going to the same place in 2nd grade, and I'm going to the same place in 3rd grade. How do we avoid that as well? So I share that with you because the budget lends to those conversations, and not just a money conversation, it lends to a program planning conversation as well. Campus security is one area that, again, some of this came from our safety audit, some additional individuals, and tonight was a perfect night where we are hosting sectionals here. We have probably 700 people down the hallway in the gymnasium, and so how do we have added capacity, be it parking lot, people being in the parking lot, or added capacity, people being in the building, all those type things becomes important for us. And that's just tonight, the normal day-to-day, everyday routines become a big part of that as well. And that also goes to the middle school, trying to get some additional monitors, part-time monitors in middle school to address some of the flows, not only during the school day, but all after school at the middle school as well. After school bus departure, in the morning coming in, all those kind of things. When we have 2,400 kids coming into a building, that's a lot of moving parts. And so how do we try to better support those needs as we move forward? So again, some of these things aren't big dollar amounts, but big impact amount. So we always think about those things as we move forward. A couple of things that's not necessarily in the general fund budget. We've been fortunate. Becky Carmen and Matt Davis put their heads together with some other folks and applied for this Recovs grant, which was just an interesting process. I keep it at that. And we were fortunate as a school district to get the funding for that. And so we're going to use that to jumpstart some additional social work support. That's going to be a big piece of it. Some additional student support counselors. So particular middle and elementary levels, 2 areas that we're really going to focus on and some of those type things. This alternative suspension aid is one that also, again, we have kids who are suspended and we're trying to tutor them all over the place. And so now how do we create a structure where for certain kids, we can actually bring them to a site, ideally on campus, and in particular when we go to 5 Maxwell, have the capacity and having someone who's going to be there working through with them. One, it's much more effective from an educational perspective, and two, it's actually even much more cost effective as well. So the big piece of it is the educational effectiveness piece that we want to, because I mean, sometimes trying to tutor kids in different places is just not an ideal situation. So we're looking to address that. And 6th grade health is a course that's going to be going through the IPAC process in the coming weeks, and so anticipating that. So this is going to be actually through the Recovs grant. So again, leveraging grant sources of revenues to enhance, expand various opportunities become a big piece of it. So several of these you'll be hearing more about as those things are planned out and materialized as well. So with all that being said, there's a lot of details. If you click on this link, you can go through all the budget codes. You know, if you can't sleep well at night, feel free. You know, I might be up, but please don't text me the questions when you're looking at them. So when we look at all of that, it kind of comes down to almost too simplistic of an equation at the end of it, where we start with where we are with the last year's budget. What are some of the operational additions? Some of the things that's the cost of doing business, right? So if we do some of the same things, kind of the rollover piece of it. And then what are some of those strategic additions and subtractions? I want to explain this piece here, this reclassification of federal funds. Because we had so many positions in federal funds, different federal funds over the years, we literally say, okay, let's take all those positions out, put them all back in the general fund budget so we don't lose anything. And then we say which one of those positions now will continue with what we call some of our title grants. Some of the grants have always been there for the last 50 years, not the new federal dollars that are coming and going. And so that's where that comes from. So we brought them all back in that because we want to make sure that we knew all the positions that were being paid by other revenue sources and not lose something in the quit. So we dropped them all back in the general fund budget so we could account for all of them. Literally, person by person by person. And now we say, okay, which one of those we take back out, that's really reclassification, and drop those in the appropriate federal funds as we move forward. So that's where that differential came from. And so that gave us a chance to figure out then how do we off-ramp certain things into the general fund budget, and what are those things that move forward as we look at the plus and minuses of the budget process. And so this number became important for us to see which one of those classifications, because all those are Title I grants, Title II grants, and 611, 619 for special education. Those are, I don't say those are guaranteed, but those are pretty stable grants over the past decades, and IDA requires certain funding sources. So that's what a reclassification is, trying to make sure we didn't drop anything out of the equation as we go through the budget process.
Okay, so it looks like a negative, but you're just recognizing it as,
Exactly.
it's gotta be
Put it in and we
offset.
put it back out, exactly.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's what it is, exactly. And so it's the plus and minuses of it all. And
Got
so all that translate to, right now, a budget that's about 3.47% increase. And again, next Tuesday we have another budget one too, that we can unpack some of the details. So it's one that, you know, tonight wasn't unpack every detail, kind of give you a good flavor of some of the big rocks that's going into it. Certainly we could address clarifying questions. When we look at the budget, go ahead, Jess.
I'll just ask now because it might be an natural. Do you want to have some questions on the substantive slides you went on now before we do this part, or do you want to do it all and go all the way back? What's
So let me go through this. If you have,
however
it
you
might be
prefer.
easier because I want to make sure, because sometimes people ask a question here and the answer
Right,
shows up back
so
here.
I'm happy either way.
yeah.
I just wanted
You
to
don't
give you
mind.
the chance.
And so I shared this slide, a slide that we traditionally do to see how funds of the budget, where it's going. And so later on in 2 budget presentations now, you'll see the slide where we do the 3-part budget to show by law we have to do a 3-part budget piece. And so this shows that a significant portion of our budget are going towards instructional related type things as we move forward. So this just give a flavor of how all those dollars are chunked out and what percentage of the budget that those dollars entail as we move forward. Again, we'll have more details on some of those things and certainly address those questions as we move forward. So this just kind of, again, give you the shares of how does the budget, and if you look from year after year, these percentages are going to be very similar, and they should, because we think about the budget in a very consistent way as we move forward. And the big piece, the big question that we always cross our finger is what will the tax cap calculation be like as we move forward. And so the tax cap allowance based upon a formula is at 2.97. If we were to go with the budget right now as is, then that would be 2.83. So there's about $195,000 differential between what the allowance is and what the levy would be required right now for the budget that we're talking about. So they kind of give you a flavor. So that 0.14 is that differential between the tax cap and right now where we projecting tax levy would be. Recognizing, you'll see another slide that some of it is based upon last year's equalization rates, and so that's why it's projected, because those things will change. And so, but still, we still want to have some sense of okay, all things being the same, what does that look like, right? And so even this next slide talking about the implication of if we were to go with the budget we have now, what does the potential for tax rates look like as we move forward? And as you see here, last year versus this year, very minimal changes in the tax rate per thousand as we move forward. But again, we want to see what does that look like, because you can have one number over here that looks great, but then it plays out not so great over here. So we want to look at the complete picture as we move forward. And as I notice here, equalization rates, we get those in August, and that often cause further fluctuation in final tax rate. But again, for the board's purposes, even public purposes, give some sense of we're not talking about sizable shifts in tax rate and things of that nature, and while at the same time preserving a lot of quality programs, adding some addressing some needs, and yet, quite frankly, with your pretty stable tax implication as we move forward within the tax cap allowance. Even this, we do the simulation on this because people say, okay, well, what does that rate look like? And so some people may question, why are we using 300? We used to do 250. When I got here, it was 200,000. Actually, when I got here, it was 150,000. Then we moved it to 200,000. Then we moved it to 250,000. Now we're doing 300,000. The average house value is actually a little bit higher within the region, and so this 300,000 is something that in maybe the coming year we might look to address as well. But it's still, again, give you the flavor. Again, all things being considered, what average person with a 300,000 full value assessed house is will pay, and the rates, the amount by towns. If you look back at this slide, the amount by towns are different because the equalization rate that applies is different. So you'll have the town of Boston, for example. I think Boston is one that always has 100% full valuation, versus the town of Clifton Park, a half moon, fluctuate around 50 to 60%. So it's a different percentage that applies to that eventually equalize out the rates, so that at the end of the day, while we may have individual rates per thousand, if you own a house of the similar value in any one of those places, you're still going to pay a comparable amount. So that's why the second slide gives that viewpoint of it. Again, we do this because we want to say, before we say this is good, we need to understand all the implications of it as we move forward. We started looking at some revenue projections already. The tax one is one we just spoke about briefly here. And the pilot, if you notice here, our pilot payments are shifting, actually, no, increased a little bit, because as we have businesses coming in and they want to have pilots, so last year was 507. This year, based upon agreements, right now it's about 673,000 off our tax levy collection is coming from a pilot payment agreements. So that kind of gives you the differential. So we have to break these out by reporting to the state anyway. What's the star versus less pilot, things of that nature. So they give you a breakdown of what we think taxes look like. Right now, federal funds, a lot of this is Medicaid reimbursements and some things that we know. Federal funds have a tendency to trickle in over time, and so trying to anticipate where some of those funds will be coming in. These are not federal grants, this is a different, largely some of the Medicaid reimbursement funds that we have coming in. The state budget is based upon what the governor's budget is right now. So we're not trying to anticipate what the final budget might be. It's based upon the governor's projection as we move forward right now at this point. And so come April 1st, if we have a state budget, we'll make the adjustments accordingly. But this is based upon the governor's budget right now, but governor's budget proposal as is right now. Some other items, one point I want to note, and we spoke about interest a little bit last year. Interest, I'm going to give perspective. When I started in 2005, we used to budget about a little over $1 million in interest. The market was hot. CD rates were 8%, so you didn't have to do anything, buy a CD and you get 8% on it. And now we went to a point where you're barely getting 1% on anything, and so everything kind of crashed. So we kind of backed off completely off investment. Investments are starting to come back up now in certain things. Schools are limited what we can invest in, very limited, by the way. And so last year we started seeing a trend. And quite frankly, we've seen if it was true to go 1 year doesn't make a trend. And so because we had multiple years up, so we bumped back up into that. Okay, so that's why you're going that $2 million is based upon the trends that we have seen over the last several years in terms of the things that we can invest in. Schools can only invest in certain things, an important piece of it as we move forward. The fund balance allocation doesn't change. We've kind of kept that flat over the years. And so again, trying to balance the revenue, the expenditure equation. Right now, the budget where we are right now, that's why I started out saying we're actually in a good place from a budget perspective. So we're not coming in here saying that we have budget gaps or X amount of dollars and things of that nature, or we have to exceed the tax cap in order to preserve existing programs. We're not having those conversations at all. We're saying that we're preserving a lot of quality programs. We're suggesting some strategic addition to the budget, and the implication for taxpayers should be, quite frankly, very reasonable, very comparable to the past year. So that just gives a flavor of that piece of it. And so some questions today we can unpack. We have a budget development meeting next Tuesday, which we could go in more details on some of that as well to unpack. So today was trying to give you a broad view of the things, not only the why, not only what we're doing, but why we're doing or proposing certain things. So I'll pause there. So if there's some questions you want to address now, great. Again, we have next week budget one. We also have another opportunity to go into those details as well.
Jason?
I don't have to.
I had a couple questions, but why don't you go ahead? I'm sure you can get them in the meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
So thank you for the little marathon there. I mean, one of the things I'll just say up front, I think, again, thanks for all the information, thanks for the presentation, a lot of good information in this. Thank you for the budget codes and that level of detail. Yes, it can put people to sleep, but it's good that we have it, so I appreciate that. I know that's not always something that's been there this early. I think I want a couple of high-level observations. Like I really like, actually we can look here, right, the tax cap. Our use, I'm happy to see us under the tax cap, but I'm happy to see the way we're making use of the tax cap strategically in a way that's also, I think, a really modest adjustment under 1% across the board, all the towns, I think, based on the estimates you put. So, you know, making.
Today.
What's that?
Remember, today.
What does that mean?
This is yes, what you see today, it gets drilled down. So what you're seeing, as we know, is a first blush and continue to drill down, right? So again, yes, you're giving a compliment, but I expect that to even probably perhaps improve, yes?
Yeah, it should get better. If the state aid get better, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, you get
Yeah.
me nervous, I thought you
No,
were gonna get worse.
No,
Okay.
No, it always
Yeah.
gets better from
Alright,
here.
that's,
This is
that's good, then
always-
we can compliment again next week.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So, yeah, but anyway, I mean, I think the more important point is just making really good use of the tax cap. And again, modest increases. I like the investments we're making. I know we heard a lot about engagement last week. I like to see the investments in the ECA credits. I know I've heard at different schools, you know, there's searching for clubs and opportunities, so I think it's good to see the district put that in. I know that's difficult contractually, but there's other ways to achieve this, so I think that's really great. On that, well, let me get past that. Let me skip that for a second. One question I'm gonna ask, I don't know how to ask this a nice or a nice sounding way, so I'm just gonna ask it because I don't mean this in at the instructional piece. Let me see, which slide is it? Where we're looking at the addition of FTEs for like special ed and and so this is great, right? But I'm counting up the numbers here. It's 18.6 FTEs, and then you go to the next slide for non-special ed or support services, and it's like 1.7 FTE. So I just feel like I have to ask the question. I know need is the thing that drives this, right?
No, it's literally driven by, I'm looking at Mr. Malab, maybe 2 new K programs at elementary level. And those programs, most, what, 811 maybe, Michelle? Michelle, can you just briefly come and mention that? Sorry, she wasn't prepared to come, so.
I was listening, so I was prepared.
Yeah, I was prepared.
So yes, we anticipate at least 2 classrooms for our incoming kindergarten students. And as Dr. Robinson said, these are students who during COVID were unable to receive in-person services, which they are eligible for starting at age 6 months. So there were years, those critical early years of missing services, and then preschool was not consistent because in addition to the Office of Health regulations, there were also other regulations for our preschool providers, such as you have to be out for 14 days because preschoolers can't wear masks. So they missed a lot of school in that critical development time, and we hope to get them up to speed. In addition to that, there was a significant court case in Connecticut that said districts are obligated to keep students until they're 22. So we also have the other end now where that updated regulation has not been adopted by New York State, but the Office of Counsel for New York State has recommended that all districts now keep students until they're 22. And those are the students who are not graduating with a
So we're
regular high
looking
school
at
diploma.
reallocation of some of the staffing to address that on the
So
back
you're
end.
moving our
and
existing
added
elementary
staffing
up
to
and
address-
then
yeah.
refilling.
So it's a mix and match.
Good, that was my next
Yeah,
question.
it's a mix and match,
And the
Thanks,
current
Michelle.
age is 21, right?
correct.
It is, okay.
And those programs come with a lot of bodies.
Another thing I was really happy to see is on the transportation side with the
Local field trips?
yes, the field trips. I think too, I'll just put this out there for the future, that might be a policy thing too that we probably have to change, but that's good. On this, the same theme, this is also something I heard a little bit last week in the presentations, this question of hardship, right? And I know it's a challenge sometimes. We have students who, never mind the transportation costs, they can't afford maybe to pay for the local field trip, or there's exams they can't take. Is there something budget-wise we can do, or should think about, or can think about to better support that? I know right now, I think teachers usually either scramble among themselves, or they're going to their PTAs, or trying to find other places to support
so,
that.
I
So
mean-
can the district do something?
There's a variety of ways. One, there are certain restrictions on what we can do. And so whatever we can do within the construct of program, we do. And there are different ways. So an example of this, not necessarily during the school year, but it's a good example of this. The foundation sponsored how many scholarships last year for summer
I'm
programming,
gonna
summer
talk about
adventure?
tonight, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, about 4,000 $4,000.
So those examples, we try to maximize, hardship waivers for assessments at the high school.
Mhm.
And so there are different ways, and some of it is, the graciousness of groups, PTAs, and some of those kind of things to address those type of things. So again, there's certain things that we try to minimize the costs. So I'll give a perfect example again. The elementary school supply list. If people buy way more on the list than we tell them to buy, but whatever. So again, we try to maximize economies of scale with that by purchasing things in bulk and making sure that all of a sudden, every parent's not trying to raid Staples at the same time to buy all the folders. And so there are different ways we try to accommodate that within the program piece of it. And there will always be unique situations that we have to figure out some ways of addressing it. Even this competition code is a perfect example of one of those. Where in the past, certain kids that went to certain competition, they paid for certain things. Then we say, okay, how can we, again, within the confines of that particular program, keep those costs either minimized or eliminate some of those costs. So the answer is yes.
And I guess just to piggyback off that, Shen provides $3,000 for every elementary school to do arts and eds, like
I'm not
separate
sure what the
from,
dollar amount is, but there's an allocation.
there's also an allocation for
I think
every
it's
school.
like per student.
It's per the school size, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it says
3,000,
by student.
as like a Ranjan's gonna get more than,
Right.
a lot more, so there's an allocation for each school.
And they
Per-
can use that for field
percent.
trips and such.
Yeah,
They use
for-
that for,
Why?
they can't use it for transportation.
Yeah.
But they can use it there's enrichment, and then there's, can't remember the other topics, but,
Exploratory enrichment, and then there's the arts, but you can,
yeah,
as long as you can make a connection to an academic, connection, then it'll be
it gets approved, yeah.
And
then
that's
they
something
pay a
that the-
portion of it.
The principal decides in conjunction with, talking with the teachers and
Yeah.
whatever needs to be
The
done.
PTA
And
yeah,
then
you
you-
usually have an arts and ed, you have an arts and ed coordinator.
Yeah.
No, I know, but that's
Yeah.
separate from the PTA. That's,
Well,
you know what I
No,
mean?
no,
No, a lot of times
PTA
PTA
does
supported. PTA supported. It's a partnership. That's a part of the
You
structure.
always have an arts and ed person
In
within the
every
PTA, like Oranjan had an arts and ed person. In all the elementary schools, there's usually an arts and ed, and at the PTA council.
Right,
We
I'm
have
sorry,
somebody-
I guess I'm just confused because then the arts and ed stuff through PTA gets subsidized for both seats.
It
Correct.
does.
But there's a separate bucket of funds.
Well, it does flow through the district.
Yeah,
Everything flows
exactly,
through the
Yeah,
district.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Everything flows through the district.
Okay.
And then,
Thank you.
and we try to, whatever we can, Mrs. Hopper mentioned tonight, the reimbursements through BOCES. There's certain things that are eligible to go through BOCES, there's certain things that are not in terms of reimbursement.
So, back to the individuals, did I hear you say maybe we could do
No,
something, or
we
you're?
are doing a lot of things now, but I can't sit here and tell you that we can accommodate every unique
No,
situation.
right, but I mean, is there like funding? I guess I'll just put the question out there, if there's funding the
We-
district could give to the schools, or if we can make some pot of money
So
available
what
for
we
this purpose.
what we can't do is a kid come up and say, I can't buy whatever. We can't give that kid money. If we have a program that somehow programmatically we can try to minimize the cost, so it's not costing that child any one cost, we try to do that. And if that doesn't exist, there are other different funding sources that we tap into
Okay.
for that family. That's why I gave the example of the summer camp. We noticed that over the years, the foundation was the source to go to those kind of things. And so,
No,
yeah.
I know that, so right, all right, so the district's not able, I mean, we were not allowed to,
Not in a very direct way that you just said.
okay, right,
Still a public school.
what does that mean?
I don't,
It's a public funding
it's a
versus
public
private.
funding versus private. I mean, I think you'd have a better shot if you were in a private, or, you know what I mean, a parochial.
I mean, I sort of take what Jason's saying is that, it's about inclusivity, it's about
Agreed.
making it available to all.
Yeah, that's what a lot of
what
things we do.
mechanisms are in place to do
Yeah, and
it.
we have we have B plans for such, right? So, like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about tonight, actually, the different grants that we just did through Foundation, which we consider gap fillers for the budget. That's really what we do.
Okay, thank you. I like this, what you were saying about standardization, by the way, talking about the trips, because I know that's something I always hear about too, so trying to use this as an opportunity for system stuff, that's good. Safety audit, you mentioned some things in there, and I know you said we're gonna talk about it. Is that something that will coincide with the budget? So like,
No,
if there's
no,
something.
we probably won't get back to, I don't know, maybe in May.
Okay,
Yeah, but we know some big rocks from that we're doing now. Either increase in supplies that we're gonna do, for instance, like fence,
right,
which was a lot of fence in that piece, signage, those type things. But those are things that it's a matter of within our current allocation of be it maintenance or whatever, how we
Yeah.
use those funds, not necessarily need for new funds, but how we need to use those funds.
yeah. So the only reason I ask is because if there were something else big or important, and then we kind of missed that window.
No, that would came
right?
up, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And there were some things in there that, as you all know, that are capital projects that was recommended from the audit, that are purely capital projects, they won't come up in the budget.
And I'll give you 2 teasers for next week, because then I'll stop monopolizing. Reserves, I know we have reserves every year, we use them and kind of refill them, so it's kind of like a 6 in one, half dozen in the other. I just want to understand that
Now,
more.
there'll be a presentation on, maybe it's next week. Next week is where we go into some of the other aspects of it, like fund balance, reserves, those type of things.
And then, okay, that's good. And then the other thing is, I know you have the slide that shows, or when you have the summary, it talks about the operational net additions and the strategic net. I'm taking operational net means, like I think you said this, just take what we have now, built-in increases, that's what that is. So what we're adding is strategic, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Those are my questions for now. I just wanted to reiterate though, again, I think the use of the tax cap, keeping it under, but, making good strategic use of that is really great. I know there's a lot of additions and things we've talked about as a group and we've talked about throughout the year, and I see them in here, so that's really good to hear as well.
Yeah, so just the next, the 12th. The 12th is where we'll do revenue, we get more into the revenue side of it, that's when we start talking about with the reserves. We'll talk about debt service,
All the fun stuff.
so you see the line on here, so we have $11 million number, right? So we have a debt service schedule, so you can see what debt we have and how the projection of our debt has actually been doing this. And so while we have the $26 million project coming on board, with the debt slightly going up, the debt for next year is equivalent to even the debt for 4 years ago. So over the average, it's pretty flat line, and it's because we try to, when debts retire, we bring new debt so you don't have spikes for the most part. And so even this end of this year, remember the mid-year goals, mid-year financial report, even this year, we're gonna try to pay off some debts this year and end of this year's budget to try to offset, particularly when the 5 Maxwell project comes on board. So always trying to be strategic in terms of those type things. So when we bring new projects on board, the debt doesn't have, again, big spike in the budget process. So we'll talk about fund balance and debt probably more in detail. And if there are some follow-up questions related to some of these things that we got to unpack some more details, we'll go into those as well. So with that being said,
Well,
if there are questions beyond tonight that people may have, shoot those questions, and we try to make sure we incorporate those in the discussions for next week as well.
Okay. So I just had a couple of comments. Okay, one is I do appreciate that we're staying below the cap. I think this also speaks to decisions that were made last year. We took advantage of where the state was as far as fully funding, and it positioned us so that even with offloading these federal programs, or not offloading them, they've ended, off-ramped them. We're still in a position to absorb that and a modest gain. So I appreciate that. I also very much appreciate this comparative analysis, so that, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, so it's showing the things that we talked about for the mid-year review for this current year budget, the changes that we're seeing, because I did see in that very long document.
In the budget code ones.
Yes, in the budget.
So yes, it's that, however, is even more right now. accurate, like as of when we printed
I was
that.
wondering
Yeah,
if
exactly.
it reflects things
Exactly.
that have happened since.
Exactly, it
Okay,
does, yeah,
good.
exactly.
And then how that plays
And how
out into
that
next
plays
year,
out,
yeah.
exactly.
No, that's really helpful, and the fact that you have multiple links, because,
Yeah, in
as
case
you're
you
moving
missed it.
through.
For those
yeah.
people who, at night want something else to do.
Well, it also got back to one of his earlier questions. I was looking to see what these like 0.4, 0.5 FTs, how that was actually playing out, and I could find it. And so I was especially, I was looking at the ENL ones specifically, but appreciate that. My two questions had to do with, February this 2023, we approved the EMT firefighter exemption.
Last year, I mean.
Last year, right. And so I was just curious, do you know what the impact that has on this
That
year?
for us,
No impact on
for
it.
No
us,
impact.
for us, it won't impact
Okay.
us.
But it just,
Yeah.
the other taxpayers.
The other one, okay.
Yeah, and
Right,
and the
it's already-
numbers, and even the numbers weren't that significant either.
It's not significant.
It's not significant.
Not many people even took advantage that were allowed to.
And
That's a good point.
And when we do, next week, when we do the revenue analysis, we'll show, some data on assessed values, right? So even with a lot of tax surcharge claims, I basically say to people, drive down 146 and Route 9, everyone probably filed a tax surcharge claim to reduce the tax assessment. If you recall, I think 2 board meetings ago, we had what we say was the last of the hotel ones, because basically all the hotels
Right.
filed for reduction. And so even with all of that, as a community, we're still very positive. And I say that because something that we can't take for granted, because there are many communities that see flat or negative overall assessment growth. And so that even offset even some of those other implications for us. It's not as, the rate isn't as fast as it has been in certain years, but still a very solid growth assessment. So we'll unpack some of that data point next week as well, so you can see that data, what we're talking about.
Okay, and then the other thing is, I had read about Hochul's cybersecurity grant, and that's, $6 million in funding. Also, I see you starting to smile. I know this is, so I'm just curious, is that factored in here?
No,
Are we
no.
planning to
No.
take advantage of that or not?
No, so the answer is, if we could take advantage of it, yes.
Okay.
Is it factored in here? No, I'll be honest with you, Naomi, my perspective is, things that are important for us, we prioritize, and we try to budget for. So cybersecurity, we leverage a lot of federal funds to get ahead of it with some equipment changes. If you recall, for example, having a second internet coming in when we have potential, it's not a cybersecurity, but it's a redundancy. Changing out a lot of the back ends in our, as Ray would say, in our closets. Huge dollar pieces as we move forward. Some of the investments that we're making now with the board has approved the last Tuesday with 2-factor authentication, huge cybersecurity piece of it. And so I say that because those things we can't rely on, are we gonna get a grant or not get a grant? If we get a grant, that's bonus, right? That's either going to help us expedite certain things and or enhance certain things. And so that's the approach we take it. And so therefore we try to plan it out as much as we can, so we can control our destiny as much as we can, and additional resources become that, additional resources to expand our capacity, and not we are relying on this, and if we can't, then we don't have that option. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you.
Similar to, even not to prolong this, I know probably way too much on this, even today something came out about e-bus infrastructure. So right away, I would venture to guess probably Al probably already submitted an application already tonight, because it's just the nature of who he is. And so if we get the funds, great, but that doesn't mean we're gonna stop trying to look at charging situation. Will help, certainly help significantly.
I was
But
just
again,
curious.
yeah.
I know it's new,
Yeah,
and,
no.
and that there's some unpacking.
Yeah.
Forgive me for using
It's
that.
hard to build a budget based upon what I call seed money. It's there for a year, then it's gone. Or you're not sure if you're gonna
that's
get it.
true. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Again, thank you. I appreciate it, probably more time than anticipated, but I think it's important, particularly this first one, to put a lot of the things that we're focused on in context. I appreciate the feedback, certainly feedback received tonight. And I hope that the board heard with this presentation that the things that we've been talking about, we try to address. We can debate how more or little we do certain things, but the what should not be debatable, right? And so I think a lot of the what's we're addressing in different ways as we move forward. So just to keep going here. Becky, did you say you gave me access, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's try this again.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. That's why Dr. Robinson's getting that up. We're going to compromise. Because Matt is a lot taller than I am, but if we need to raise this, we can absolutely raise this. Alright, so good evening, and did I take it? He's fine. So many of you read the On Board magazine that you guys receive, and recently there was an article in there discussing the importance of supporting the holistic development of children. And at the same time, CDC recently has come out with a report emphasizing the significance of promoting mental health literacy. It's evident from our observations here at Shen and understanding that it is our responsibility to address the comprehensive needs of each child rather than concentrating solely on the specific aspects. So Mr. Davis and I are here tonight, and we will present an overview of the various initiatives we are undertaking here at Shenendehowa to prioritize the mental health and cater to the holistic needs of our students here. In 2021, 42% of high school students reported having felt so sad and hopeless for at least 2 weeks in the past year that they couldn't engage in their regular activities, and 22% of high school students reported that they had seriously considered suicide.
Where?
Mental,
Which high school students?
so I still talking holistically
make sure that-
with CDC, not here, I apologize, I should have restated that differently.
Yes, thank you.
So in regards to the CDC, not here, we don't have that solid data here. However, we do know that the mental health issues among adolescents, as well as adolescents here at Shen, can indeed, the mental health needs have risen and indeed have far-reaching consequences, affecting not only their lives and their ability to learn, but also their overall well-being and future prospects. Mr. Davis is going to speak to some of the data as it relates to here at Shen and how, what we're currently doing here.
Great, thank you. So on the screen here, I just want to highlight some data that we've gathered over the course of this year relating to the services that we're providing to students. So Becky mentioned that CDC data, and we're going to talk a little bit more about recommendations that the CDC has made in terms of best practices for school districts to implement mental health supports for students. And the great news is that here at Shen, we're already implementing most of those best practices. So the data you see up here indicates students who are accessing specific mental health services at each grade level. And I want to just address K-5 as it relates to student support counselors, because you'll see there it says not applicable. While we don't currently have a student support counselor at K-5, and we're going to be sharing more about how we plan to address that as it relates to the RECUBS grant that Dr. Robinson just mentioned in the budget presentation, we do offer significant other supports. So we have a behavior specialist who's specifically focused on K-5, as well as a school counselor and a school psychologist in each of our buildings. So our students K-5 do have what we would consider Tier 1 and Tier 2 access to supports and interventions, similar to what's being offered 6, 8, and 9, 12, even though there's not a person with the title of student support counselor right now. So between the student support counselor and Saratoga Center for the Family, we have a significant number of students accessing these tiered services. So when we think about student support counselors, those would be our Tier 2 intervention. We have over 225 students accessing that support in grades 6 through 12. And as you can see, though we added the middle school student support counselor only last year, that individual already has a strong caseload of students that they're supporting. And the great news about that position is that it's funneling students into 9-12, so we're not having to identify students for that support when they get to 9th grade. We already have an existing caseload that's able to support the student support counselor who's full-time at High School West, and then the 2 student support counselors who are full-time at High School East. In addition to that, we have significant FTEs of support in Saratoga Center for the Family Therapy Services, and caseloads district-wide are in excess of 110 students. And while we do have some students on wait lists, we are able to meet a significant percentage of the needs for that specific counseling by licensed mental health counselors, which is different from what we're able to provide with school counselors and student support counselors. So what types of needs are our students facing that would lead them to be recommended for those supports as it relates to student support counseling and Saratoga Center for the Family? So this is not an exhaustive list that you see here, but a student might be referred to work with a counselor, psychologist, behavior specialist, or therapist if they're exhibiting any of the following behaviors and other behaviors that might not be listed. So if a student is experiencing aggressive or non-compliant behavior, harm to themselves or others, a significant mental health crisis, could be linked to anxiety or depression, but others as well. Some students have social emotional skill deficits that need to be addressed. We also accept referrals by parents, students themselves once they get to be old enough, and staff members. And we also, of course, are seeking to work with students to develop coping strategies and manage transitions. So sometimes there's a student who's experienced a death or a loss, who we may refer for additional support, or perhaps a student whose parents have recently been divorced, something along those lines to manage that life change. So those are the types of needs, again, that would contribute to a student being referred for that Tier 2 or Tier 3 support.
Real quick, is that in priority order or just not?
No,
Okay.
so not in any particular order. It is in alphabetical order until the last 2 bullets, but not on purpose. Yes, so
Good pattern recognition.
yeah, but no, not in order. And honestly, when Becky and I think about triaging, in situations where there's perhaps just a limited number of seats right in Saratoga Center for the Family Services, we do have situations too where we're able to accept emergency referrals. So if there's a student who moves into the district who's in significant crisis, or a student who, again, has a major change at home and needs that emergency support, typically it's a counselor calling me, I'm calling Becky, Becky's calling Saratoga Center, and we're doing everything we can to get that student's need met, and we're usually able to do so.
So again, I want to go back and revisit recommendations from CDC. With their recent report that they had come out with, they highlighted 6 areas that were specific recommendations that they were talking about really addressing the needs of students. And when you look at these 6 areas specifically, we here at Shenendehowa are in perfect alignment with what those recommendations are from CDC. And we are going to go through each one of these and talk a little bit about what we are doing as it aligns with the recommendation of CDC and what our efforts are to continue to cultivate a climate and culture where we are prioritizing the mental health needs of our students is really of the utmost importance.
So the CDC, again, has made several recommendations, the first of which is to increase students' mental health literacy. So Dr. Robinson mentioned in the budget presentation that the district applied for and was awarded the RECOVS grant by the State Education Department, and one component of that grant was really focusing on expanding student competency as it relates to mental health literacy. So some of the ways we already do this are through health education curriculum in 8th grade and 10th grade, as well as through professional development that's offered to staff. A couple examples of that are youth mental health first aid training, which is a phenomenal training that really teaches non-mental health practitioners, so support staff, instructional staff, so folks other than counselors and psychologists, how to recognize and respond to students who may be experiencing mental health crises. Another training that we offer frequently is suicide awareness training, which is really a great 20-minute training that anyone can take to, again, start to recognize and be able to respond, make a warm handoff to someone who is going to be able to support a student who may be experiencing that type of crisis. Of course, we also have access to mental health professionals throughout the district, both from the school counseling side and the Saratoga Center for the Family side of that equation. So several ways that we're looking to increase students' access to mental health literacy, and one we're going to talk a little bit more about later is moving the health education curriculum to start more formally in 6th grade, which will be an opportunity for students to get additional instruction on how to access those supports that we already have in the district. So in other ways, generally speaking, our work as it relates to mental health is all about creating a safe and supportive school environment. So we're doing that through things like school culture and climate initiatives, the use of restorative practices, teaching social emotional skills and competencies, and then lastly, promoting self-care and resilience building. And that goes for both students and staff. So the second CDC recommendation relates to mindfulness. And I'll just say right up front, Shenendehowa does not have a K-12 mindfulness initiative. It's really something that we promote to teachers to say, if this is a strategy that works for you in your classroom, then we encourage you to do so. I know that prior to my time at Shen, we offered several trainings to teachers related to mindfulness. And we know that mindfulness can be a beneficial strategy, but it may be something that not every educator is comfortable doing in their classroom. Some of the benefits of it can include reduced stress and anxiety, improved self-regulation, and increased academic performance. And when we think about mindfulness, sometimes you think meditation, yoga, things like that. Those are certainly examples of mindfulness, but from a pedagogical perspective, mindfulness can even include things like different reading and journaling strategies, reflection and breathing exercises, and even just the simple practice of gratitude and affirmation in the classroom. So some teachers may not even realize they're using mindfulness strategies. It's really just part of a great classroom climate and culture that promotes these benefits. The CDC's third recommendation, and one which you've heard about many times in this space, is the promotion of social, emotional, and behavioral learning. So in K-5, we have a curriculum that's implemented in all of our elementary schools, which is second step. And that curriculum focuses on 5 social emotional skills and competencies. So the diagram on the slide, again, is one we've seen many times, but those 5 areas are self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, social awareness, and relationship skills. So these are the skills and competencies that we want all of our students to embody and exhibit, both as a result of their career here at Shen, and then on, in the community and after they leave us. So while we have this formal curriculum K-5, these skills don't just end in 5th grade. So they're built into the standard curriculum 6-12, both in the work that students are doing with counselors, as well as the work that teachers are doing in the classroom promoting social emotional learning. An additional practice that we've embarked on recently is the use of restorative practices K-12. So lots of different ways that restorative practices have been implemented, but most importantly, from the social emotional perspective, is the proactive implementation of restorative practices. So that's things like community circles and engaging students in culture building activities. And then on the responsive side, using restorative practices as a means to address when students have violated a school policy or expectation, and then using those strategies to bring them back into the school community, to reintegrate them and hopefully prevent them from repeating the same incident again. So lots of ways that we are implementing social, emotional, and behavioral learning through second step restorative practices and the MTSS process as well. The next recommendation from the CDC relates to enhancing connectedness among students, staff, and families. So this has actually been one of our major goals this year in the Counseling Advisory Committee. So the Counseling Advisory Committee has really been thinking about how to better integrate new families into the Shen community. So connectedness and belongingness are two big ways, or two big things rather, that the CAC has been focused on. So we had the New to Shen Fair earlier this year to welcome new families into the district and connect them to community resources and district resources. And we also held a community circle with families who were new to the district last year that really contributed to the work that the CAC was doing. And that really gave us an opportunity to form relationships with families that were new to the district. And again, is an example of restorative practices that helps enhance connectedness and belongingness among students, staff, and families. The next recommendation from the CDC relates to providing psychosocial skills training and cognitive behavioral interventions. And so before I talk about this further, I just want to say I'm not a trained counselor. So I know what these things are and I know how counselors use them, but I'm not a practitioner of these things. So in terms of how they're used from the student support counselor side of the equation, our student support counselors are trained school counselors. And through their training as school counselors, they are trained in the application of psychosocial skills and cognitive behavioral interventions, but they are not therapists. So our student support counselors are teaching students skills and helping students access resources and supports. On the Saratoga Center for the Family side of our support network, those folks are licensed mental health counselors. Sometimes they're licensed clinical social workers as well. And they are able to actually diagnose and assign specific treatments for mental health situations that students may have. So the district is doing these things per the CDC recommendation as part of our school-based mental health continuum. I'm going to turn it back over to Becky to talk about how we're supporting staff well-being.
So one of the recommendations, or another recommendation that the CDC talks about is how do we support our own staff working within the school system. And one of the things that we have done here at Shenendehowa and taking some of those proactive steps is really working through our district's health and wellness committee and looking at what we are doing, what are those things that we can provide, how can we engage staff in some health and wellness and address some self-care. We did a comprehensive needs assessment. We sent out a survey talking about, asking different questions about what worked well with things that we've done in the past. What would you like to see moving forward? And believe it or not, mental health was one of the top 3 interests. They wanted to see more programs around, mental health and what are some things that we could be doing to help support staff in this specific area. Involving the key, we have been involving some key stakeholders in this work. Human Resources has been very active and very involved, CDPHP, our insurance program really looking at what services they have. They're supporting us in these efforts now. They have recently produced an executive summary for us as a result of the survey that we are going to be sharing out as a whole, and then really working on developing programs moving forward and looking at how we can really engage staff in some positive opportunities to address their own self-care and their own mental health and well-being, and then what additional resources we can provide here as a system or even connect to in the community. Also really trying to provide opportunities to bring people together in situations that they may not engage in necessarily otherwise from different levels, trying to give people an opportunity to get to know other people throughout the system as a whole. In addition to that, one more thing, I know Matt just went forward, I just want to mention too, we developed a health and wellness website, which we are going to be publishing shortly, putting some final touches on that. That is really going to be a wealth of information for our staff also, and helping direct them to what are the services we provide as a system, what are things that they can get involved in, and or do you have suggestions that we can look to implement some additional programs. The last recommendation the CDC makes is, training staff and what are you doing to provide training to staff in the area of mental health and well-being. And one of the biggest things is we are dedicated here at Shenendehowa and committed to providing ongoing professional learning, and that is one of the biggest things that attracts people here at Shenendehowa too, is that support that we do provide ongoing professional development, and our commitment to really stems from our belief with that importance of continuous learning and continuous improvement. And through this, we have been looking at what are those training programs that we can offer for staff, any staff, not just teachers, monitors, aides, custodians, that will help better understand the needs of our students. And one of the biggest things, or not one of, but some of the things that we have done, this slide showcases, is the suicide safety for teachers. Matt did talk about that, but this is a little bit more in depth, and the additional crisis team training, in addition to our youth mental health first aid, which again, many people across the system have taken what's the word I'm looking for? Advantage of, thank you. Taking advantage of this training, which has been really nice, and people have, the feedback that they have provided is, thank you for providing this, because this really helps me understand what students may be experiencing. What are some of those signs that I could be looking for? What is a warm handoff? What do those things look like? Where do I go? And just learning more about our system and how to assist students who may be in need. And lastly, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Davis to talk about some of the next steps.
So knowing, based on some of the data that Becky shared earlier and the CDC recommendations, that students are experiencing increased needs after the pandemic. We know that our approaches need to be evidence-based. They need to be centered around the work we're already doing with MTSS, and they need to promote equity of access. We want all Shen students to be able to access the tiered supports that we offer related to social, emotional skills and mental health. So we've talked a lot about what we're already doing. Just want to wrap up by sharing what our plans are for the future. So again, we've applied for and we're awarded the Mental Health Recovs Grant, and that's going to allow us to expand access to health education, bringing that into 6th grade, expand access to the student support counselor role in K-5. I'm sure you recall on one of the previous slides, we don't currently have a student support counselor K-5, but through the Recovs Grant, we're going to be able to bring that position on in the future. Additionally, bringing on a social worker, K-8, who will support attendance and mental health needs in those grade levels. And finally, training additional staff in some of the programs we've already discussed, including mental health first aid and suicide awareness. So thank you very much. Becky and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you both for all the work.
Oh, sorry.
Good, no, go ahead, Tom.
I was gonna say real fast, I really love, I don't have any questions. I love the training for staff, particularly youth mental health first aid. It's huge, it's the school standard. And I believe that, adults who know the system, who know the protocols that already exist and can help students access those services is paramount. And thank you for coordinating all that. Sure.
If you just indulge me once for a second.
Sure.
So before Matt and particularly Becky sits down, it's interesting, right? So we do these presentations and you get 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And Becky, she doesn't do herself a lot of service in terms of what she actually does for the district. So I want to point this out. So Becky sits on several county, statewide committees related to mental health, safety, and things of that nature. And as a result of that, not only influence what's happening there, but gives us almost firsthand opportunity to access resources as a system. And most recently, and I'm going to share more information in Friday Bulletin, she sits on the county mental health, whatever the piece of it, and the SERPAs, I think is what they call them now.
SPOA. The SPOA.
The
single point of entry.
Yeah, so there's a certified recovery peer advocate.
Oh, yes. yes, that's another one.
So I give you an example, so I'm gonna
Another
share
committee.
just got this information today.
Yeah.
The county, Saratoga County has been working on this, and Becky's been a big part of the conversation, in terms of how do we connect families to all these services, because I think that's the most frustrating part. And so tying those individuals with our school resource officers. And so I share that with you because, sometimes we can sit here and hype, but there's a lot of other things that we're doing that aren't necessarily Shen's, but either we're influencing and or taking full advantage of. So I really just wanted to pause and say kudos, thanks to Becky, because she is a person. She's a person that's out there going to the meetings. She's a person that's out there going to the state education department. She's a person that's engaging with Utica National to try to bring training around safety. She's a person that's dealing with the Office of Mental Health and just making sure that when they send us surveys, we look at the surveys and say, these aren't the best questions to ask. Can you do that again? And they're willing to do it because we use the leverage of us being the school district we are. So again, it's more of a compliment to Becky than to give you specific information. So I really want the board to understand that we're just not regurgitating what we heard. We're influencing what's happening as a school system. So Becky, thank you for your work. And
Thank
certainly
you.
Matt has been a
Thank
great
you very
addition, a
much.
great partner, tying that to the work of counselors as well. So we have a very comprehensive mesh of things that we do. So thank you, appreciate it.
I'll just add that with your work on the safety committee, you tie a lot of things together. And there's no way I could add, I just want to make sure, I completely agree. You do so much for this district. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Dean. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Back to you, Matt.
So,
I just gotta run and get my paper really quick.
I was gonna say, you're up next. So, for first reading.
So we have a lot of policies that are being presented for first reading tonight that were reviewed at February's policy committee. And I'm just looking at some of them to see if there's anything of mention that I need to. Nothing of major.
Is there something we need to know about pets and other animals in school facilities and on school grounds?
Just
Am I gonna get
No
nailed as I'm
horses.
walking my dog?
Where's the board support animal?
The police will be
The
there.
board therapy dog, we ought to have.
Why don't we have that?
She'll
More
be
of an
here.
emphasis on dogs than other animals.
Yes.
Just saying.
There's only horses. Yeah.
Well, no,
So the
it
only
it
other
is
therapy.
seriously
It is.
Clarify that.
specific to dogs than any other animals.
Are there any questions regarding any of those?
Or I should say that was the purpose of the change, was to make it, so it wasn't open to anything. Your pet snake, for example.
No, there are no.
Therapy parrot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move into the consent items, and the first item up, A, can I have a motion to accept and approve the reference treasurer's report for the period ending January 31st, 2024? First is Tom, second is Gusta. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Petra? Okay, it is 7 in favor, thank you. For the minutes, everyone was here for both meetings, February 6th and the 27th. So with that, can I have a motion to approve the February 6th and February 27th minutes? First is Stacy, second is Jason. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It is unanimous, 7, thank you. We're going to move into the action items. And for number 1, can I have a motion to approve the ECA unit for unified sports? First is Gusta, second is Deanna. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It is 7 in favor, it's unanimous. Thank you. Sure, we're reading through. Okay, number 2, contracts. Can I have a motion to approve the Expressive Journeys LLC contract? First is Tom, second is Stacy. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It is 7, it is unanimous, thank you. Okay. Can I have, this one's the proposal, correct?
No, the last one was.
Oh, progression, sorry. I have these slightly out of order. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the progression partners contract? And this is with Natalie McGee. Deanna's first, Jason is second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It is unanimous. The motion is passed. Thank you. Moving into 3. Oh, sorry, I did have these in order. With NARIC, can I have a motion to approve the NARIC installment purchase of Chromebooks? First is Gusta, second is Tom. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It is 7 in favor. It is unanimous. The motion is approved. Under proposals, A, can I have a motion to approve the ISSA CMI training proposal? First is Stacy, second is Tom. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Can I just ask a question? This is a proposal and not a contract? Is there a
Yeah,
reason?
so-
Do we not enter into a contract?
Yeah,
with
it's
them, or-
because it's a training. They come in, they're trained, yeah, it's not a
So
long
this is
term.
like we just cut a PO or something?
That's why each time we do it.
Okay.
Correct.
Oh, so we need to touch?
Yeah,
It's 30 seconds.
Yeah, so yeah, each time, that's what.
It's like we just cut them a PO, it's a one-time thing.
Okay. Oh, that was a good question. Thank you. All in favor? It is 7 in favor. The proposal is approved. Next, number 5. Can I have a motion to approve the painter's rental agreement? First is Deanna, second is Gusta. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It is 7 unanimous. It is approved. Thank you. Number 6. It says number 5, but it is number 6. Can I have a motion to accept the scholarships and local grant donations with appreciation? First is Petra. Second is Gusta. Comments? With appreciation again. All in favor? It is 7 in favor. It is approved. Thank you. Actually, there are quite a few this month. Number
7 now.
7, yes. Can I have a motion to approve the Shen Summer Adventures Consulting Nurse? First is Gusta, second is Petra. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It is 7, motion approved. We're going to move into the students. Mrs. Miles.
Good evening. You have before you the recommendations from the committees on preschool and special education for both 23-24 and 24-25.
Any comments or questions? With that, can I have a motion to accept the special education placements? First is Tom, second is Gusta. All in favor? 7, it is unanimous. Thank you, Mrs. Miles. And it looks like we have Dr. Wilson Turner coming up for the staffing recommendations.
Yes, you have before you the staffing recommendations. I would like to highlight 3 people who are retiring this year with 37 years of total service. Michelle Carlson, who is a research assistant in the Office of Student Learning, Data and Accountability. Yes, she's been with us for a while. Tracy Frazier, who's in our special education transition program, is also doing a lot of work with our backpack program. And Alfred Karam, our director of transportation. So we thank them all for their service.
Thank you. It's weird. It is. Can I have a motion to approve the staffing recommendations? First is Jason, second is Gusta. Any comments? I'd like to.
Congratulations and good luck, right?
Yes, I have to say too, I was surprised to see 10 years. He's done so much in that time that he's been here, and more specifically, navigating some very difficult times, especially during COVID when we were experiencing shortages and helping out other districts. Yes, still experiencing shortages, but also, with the current taking the lead in the work that's being done for electrification of buses. So, wow, those are some big shoes to fill. But to also thank all 3 of our retirees, Michael, Tracy, and Al. It's, they will be missed, their mark is forever here, and I wish them all the best on their journey forward. Any other comments? No, okay. All in favor? It is 7 unanimous, the motion is approved, thank you. And back for the second reading.
Second reading. So the policies we have in front of you tonight for second reading were presented at policy review in January. Are there any questions?
For rescind,
Mhm.
does that mean that they're not?
No longer,
So we're not-
correct.
Correct.
Yeah, it's a procedure. We're not using that procedure, or we've embedded it within.
They rarely go away. They go somewhere else. Good question. Okay, with that, can I have a motion to approve the policies up for second reading? First is Stacy, second is Petra. All in favor? It is 7 in favor, it's unanimous, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Carmen. We're gonna move into our second public comment. Seeing no one approach the podium, I will close the second comment period, and I'll move in for good of the order. Any comments for good of the order? Deanna, did you want to share in foundation?
Yeah, I did, thank you. So just a highlight that, and planning purposes. So we have set for a large-scale event on November 2nd at the Vista. We're all set to go, band, everything, all the good stuff that incorporates a grand event. But more importantly, November 2nd, yeah.
So it's a fundraising gala?
We're not gonna call it a gala.
You're not gonna call it a gala?
It'll be a big reveal, but save the
Oh,
date,
okay.
save the date right now.
Save the
How's that?
date.
Save the date. So November 2nd, Vista. And just to back up, when we were talking about, it's a great time to talk about this. The Shenendehowa, Bob Presley coined it, and I liked it, gap fillers, right? So the foundation helps with some of the programs that the budget is not able to cover. So the budget items. So far, we're in March right now, we've already approved, thank you, Dr. Wilson-Turner, 4 grants. And they were for Seat Camp, we approved $6,000 to be able to send children there that are unable to financially pay. Aspire program, we're backing that, so that's a really great program for Shen, so we're happy to do that. Nutritionist, Coach Salmon out of the High School West asked for a nutritionist to come and speak to the athletes about eating, because a lot of them have questions, what to eat after they work out. So I think that's a great thing to do. And also, Andy Akawana, one of the tech teachers, asked for a tool cart to be able to move things quickly, because there's space issues there. They got a lot of things that they need to move around, so they're moving things and keep everything on a cart so you can move it from like DDE class to a different class or whatever tech class they're having. So we approve that as well.
Who requested that, I'm sorry?
Andy, I can't remember.
Is it Andy Mink?
Andy
Yes.
Mink, thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Andy Mink and Rock Travis. Together, the band. So again, right, look at all
Nice
that
work.
we're able to do. So we're gonna continue to, I think we're gonna do some videos. We're going to expound on our social media presence, the foundation, so I'm happy to do that. We're getting going. So you'll hear more as the months go on.
It's exciting, what's going on?
Nice work.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just real fast, I just wanted to take a second. We haven't really had a chance to do this, so I really want to express my gratitude for the conversations we have around this table. From where I sit, the questions that are both asked and graciously answered are valuable to me. I say this not just because, as was remarked recently, that I'm a freshman board member, but because the public is better informed when we ask questions for the sake of clarification and elaboration. And while it may extend the length of our meetings at times, I find them to be helpful toward greater symbiosis between the board and the district. And I just wanted to say thank you to those who are patient with us. Appreciate it.
And vice versa.
As the guy who spoke the most tonight, I say you're welcome.
Or I'm sorry.
You thank me.
Never,
You
no,
thank
this is it.
Any other comments? Just as a quick update, with our retreat to go over the board stuff about what, because of what, this time of the year, it's really not, we discussed this in leadership, so we're gonna push it out to later in the spring, just so that we can get through the budget season. But it will be happening. We just haven't given you an update in a couple of meetings, so I just wanted you to know that, the reason for that. Any other comments? Jackson? Oh, it looked like you were about to say something. Sorry, I didn't mean to put the spotlight on you.
Nothing yet.
Okay, with that, 11 is the policy review schedule. We'll see you tomorrow. Mrs. Carmen, as with, it looks like everyone in this room probably is going to be there. And of course, our ongoing board presentation schedule. And so with that, we move on to item number 12. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Community conversations. Saturday, yes. Oh, you don't? I thought I saw it on the
I
screen.
did, I have it on mine.
No, I'm just fine with the time as well.
I'm sorry.
No,
No,
yes.
actually, that's a
No,
good
no, it's
point.
moved.
It is
Not
not,
Saturday?
It's gonna be the 16th.
Oh, sorry, Naomi.
no, that's
Okay.
fine.
No,
March
no.
16th, community conversation.
It was, initially was the Saturday. but
Okay.
that's
No, no.
what we found Saturday.
No, that's a good add. Thank you.
Yeah,
Is
scan
it still at
scan
Tasago?
us to Saga cafeteria. You saw
Okay.
me.
We're still good?
No, it was.
We're good? Okay. All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn? First is Tom, second is Stacy. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Oh, all in favor?
Now, again?
No, we need to adjourn. Thank you.
9:30, right? 9:30?
For
Oh, for the community conversation. You know, I didn't say anything about it, but I did notice that the, my football coach.
10,
I got it.
10. Guston,
Everybody turn off your
10,
mics.
Guston.
10, okay.
And mooching
So-
as usual.
So, Oliver, I did see that the flag football coaches were on this agenda.
Yeah.
I forgot.
I gotta get out of here.
Three of them, two of them.
Yeah.
Three of them, one
Well,
is
one lady took